Hello, you are welcome to the Diary of Truth. This is Olusheye Matthias. Last time I spoke about the drying up of River Euphrates, and I did say that there are three major prophecies concerning the River Euphrates. I explained the first, which has to do with the promise God made to Abraham to give him the land between the river Nile, that is the river of Egypt, and then River Euphrates. And I did say that that prophecy has not been fully fulfilled because of Israel's rebellion and disobedience to God. And therefore, God said he was no longer going to drive the people away. And in response to my report on the drying up of River Euphrates and the fact that it's a sign of the end time, which is supposed to come up under the sixth judgment vow, which will lead on to Armageddon. Catherine Blaine sent me this message, and the message reads, "The last 3.5 years of the Great Tribulation brings King's army of the whole world to Armageddon. China plays a major role. Euphrates water dries up, that the way of the king of the east might be prepared. 200 million mountain troops, the war-fiery red armor, and black, blue, yellow war against him, that is Christ on the horse." Still on the drying up of River Euphrates, she said, late 1980s, the 32 billion milestone of southeastern Turkey became the Anatolia project. That is talking about the project of the dams that were made on River Euphrates by Turkish government. Any of now existing 22 dams are capable of drying up Euphrates River, allows China to cross, which means the River Euphrates, the dams that are on it, are enough to dry up River Euphrates to allow the enemies from the east. And I'm going to deal with this one more in today's video. But before I go on, you will see the passages that are read, which is one of the passages that many of the scholars are using and merging both Revelation chapter 9, verse 16 to 17. They merge it with Revelation chapter 16, verse 12 to 16, and that of 19, where the Christ comes to fight the battle of Armageddon, where Antichrist is taken and the false prophet. Now, what does the Bible really say about the 200 million horsemen? And then, are they really related to the four angels that are presently bound under River Euphrates? Now, are the 22 million horsemen described in Revelation chapter 9 really linked to China? If not, where does China come in end time prophecies? And then where does Russia and other nations come in this battle? This next report reveals what people think about the 200 million troops or horsemen that are spoken of in Revelation chapter 16. And then in relation to what is said about the four angels bound under River Euphrates according to Revelation chapter 9. Now, listen to this report and then I'll be back.
We know that the Euphrates is one of the four major rivers in the Asia. Most of the Western civilization is built around this long, gigantic river. But wait, is it the same gigantic, long river today? No, it's not. This is what a 52-year-old Syrian farmer has to say about this. It's as if we were in the desert. We're thinking of leaving because there is no water left to drink or irrigate the trees. A river which was huge and long, flooded with water, ready to take everything with its flow that comes its way. How can it dry into a desert in just a few years? Scholars and historians say It is the prophecies in the Bible, Quran, and Hadith that are coming true. One such verse from the Bible, chapter 16, clearly says, "The sixth angel poured his bowl on the great river, the Euphrates, and its water was dried up, so that the way would be prepared for the kings from the east." Turkey has been the biggest contributor in helping the river dry up and fulfill these ancient prophecies. It has built several dams on the river. No matter what the actual reason is, this prophecy had to come true. The mighty Euphrates had been an uncrossable barrier for the forces of the east, but with its drying up, the path is clear. As a result, scholars have been trying to give possible interpretations for the kings from the east. Who will be these kings from the east? Most people believe it will be China, given its strong army and economic influence. Do you think it will be a collaboration between the Muslim and non-Muslim states from the east, which will include the Arab countries, Pakistan, China, or maybe Afghanistan? The shocking prophecies in the holy books and revelations have started to prove themselves true. There was a time when people wouldn't believe that such a thing could possibly happen. And I'm not sure if this is a good thing or a bad thing to be alive to witness these.
That was a report from a Muslim reporter who does not know whether it is good or it is right to be alive when all these things will be taking place. But also let me remind you that the trumpet judgment number 1 to 4 will follow immediately the seal. And the content of this is to affect 1/3 of the entire earth. When we talk of the earth, we talk of the surface of the earth, the water, the sea, the sun, the moon, and even the star, the lights of the universe. It's going to affect the sea, that is the seafood, and then even sheep on the seashore. 1/3 of them will be destroyed. 1/3 of life in the sea will be gone. Oceans will be destroyed. And then this will also kill so many people, because many will die of thirst, many will die of bitter waters, many will die of darkness. The vegetation that are gone, that cannot grow because there is no sun, there is no moonlight, and oceans are bad, fishes are dying. There is toxic environment everywhere. The Antichrist will continue his battle campaign against the kingdom of the north and east of his kingdom, which he will go to fight. Lives will still be getting lost. Life will still be getting lost with all these plagues happening. Now, remember the 5th trumpet, that is where you have the locusts afflicting people. Let's even assume that during that period of locusts, people will not die, because it says at that time people will seek to die, but death will not come to them. That doesn't mean that people will not die before or after this, because I've told you all the previous experiences will claim lives of people. Just within the time of the locusts will just have this preservative power that will not make people to be able to die. The purpose of the locusts was to make them suffer. Just when people are still suffering of pain of this demonic locusts, then here is a loosing of the 4 angels. And these 4 angels are so terrible in their operation that they command other 200 million soldiers. Well, there have been debate. I've heard people talk about these soldiers as maybe China. Remember, as populous as China might be now, after rapture, a lot of devastation will happen that will reduce their number drastically. So China may not be as populous as they are presently. They will not be left out with all the devastations that will be coming upon the earth. So they will be dying, and a lot of number. So, but who are these 200 million soldiers or horsemen that these 4 angels are going to command? Definitely, this, by my knowledge, and if you look at the description of this, you will know they are not human beings, despite the fact that people give physical expressions to the symbols that are given. But I don't think they are symbols. They describe some personality that are demonic. And if you look at their operation there, they don't look like human. And I believe these 200 million people, these 200 million horsemen, they are demons that will be commanded, that will arise out of abyss, and then will be led by these four angels that are presently in River Euphrates. It's going to be a very devastating experience because they are sent to kill 1/3 of the few people that will still survive, that will be on earth at that time. It's going to be very terrible. Already, all these prophecies are getting prepared. And that is what we are seeing in Euphrates presently is mind-blowing to many people who know the implication of this. We might say the sixth trumpet has not sounded yet, but now we can see the possibility of what will happen during that time when the trumpet eventually sounds. If it has started to dry now, you can imagine how dry it will be when the actual trumpet is blown. Presently, we can see that River Euphrates has been affected by so many things. The dam, at least on the river alone, there are about 5 dams. Isn't that enough to cut off the entire flow of water and allow soldiers to cross, like it happened in the days of Cyrus when he conquered Babylon? At that time, of course, we know that Babylon was built upon River Euphrates, and then the water of Euphrates was channeled under and around the city. And therefore, when God saw that Belshazzar, the story is in the book of Daniel, Belshazzar took the cup from the temple of Jerusalem and began to drink wine with it. And then God sent a handwriting on the wall. That night, Daniel interpreted the writing on the wall as a judgment upon the wicked and callous king. While Daniel was relaying the interpretation of the handwriting on the wall, soldiers from Medo-Persia, led by Cyrus, were already working their way in River Euphrates, cutting off the water source from entering into the city. And that very night, the project was done deal, was executed, finished, because that night the water was already gone. And then the soldiers had got enough space to enter into Babylon through the tunnel, through the channel that River Euphrates was always filled with. And that gave them entrance. And then the prophecy of Daniel came to pass that night because the king was destroyed. Anything could be the reason why this prophecy would be fulfilled. Prophecy get fulfilled with any means or through any medium. And therefore, these are some of the things that happen. One mistake that many of the people that interpret this River Euphrates prophecy make is that they join together two prophecies that are not together. The prophecy that has the sixth trumpet prophecy of the release of the 4 angels has nothing to do with the sixth veil judgment prophecy of drying up the Red Sea. The first came up in between. The first is to happen at the middle of the Great Tribulation, and it is just a normal judgment for that time. That 2 million demons will be headed by 4 angels, fallen angels, to execute that mission for that time frame, and then that was it. But the drying of the Euphrates as at the sixth seal, that is towards the end of the prophecy of the book of Revelation or of the 7 years tribulation. And that is preparing for the battle of Armageddon, which ends the great tribulation, is the major focus of the battle. In fact, it is the one that ushers in it is the battle of Armageddon that ushers in the coming of Jesus, the second coming of Christ as King of Kings and Lord of Lords. So the drying up of River Euphrates, which is a symbol of Armageddon, has nothing to do with the 200 million that are going to kill people within that period. There will be two major wars against the Israelites. The first will happen in the middle of the tribulation. That is when the abomination of desolation is placed by Antichrist in the temple, the third temple in Jerusalem. And then the Israelites will flee, like Jesus told them to flee to the wilderness. They will flee to Arabian nations just to hide. But some people will be left in the city, and those people will face intense persecution and all inhuman treatment. But then, this is the first. But the Antichrist will not remain in Jerusalem throughout the end of the book because he's a man of war. The scripture says that he will hear rumor. That's Daniel now, chapter 11. From verse 40, talks about the rumor of the king from the north and from the east that will make him to be afraid. And he will go in anger to fight against them. He will continue the fight against the king of the north, which is necessarily going to be Russia, and the king of the east are the other kings like China, other nations that will not be under his kingdom of his 10 kingdoms. So he will go and fight those people for the last 3.5 years. At the middle of the Great Tribulation, when this sixth trumpet will sound and the four angels will be loosed, there will not be crossing over of armies. Because at that time, it is the Antichrist actually that moves over to the north and to the east to fight them. And then, towards the end of the tribulation, which is when the sixth veil judgment is released, and then the drying up of the Euphrates happen, that is when Antichrist must have fought all the battles, must have won the kings of the north and the king of all the east, and then bring them over to Megiddo to fight the final battle. That is when actually there is need for the drying of River Euphrates. And that is at the time when the angels pour the veil on the River Euphrates for it to dry, for all this army crossing over to Megiddo against Jerusalem to be able to march on the dry ground. That is the drying of the River Euphrates. That is the third prophecy in the scriptures that refer to Euphrates. And like I said, this last one is under the sixth veil judgment and towards the end of the Great Tribulation. In fact, that plague is to round up the Great Tribulation by bringing all the armies of the world, because immediately after then, we see three frogs coming out from the three frog spirits coming from the mouth of the beast and from the false prophet and from the dragon, going to persuade all the nations of the world. In fact, that is one of the reasons why I believe all the nations of the world will not be under the Antichrist when it arises. The operation of Antichrist is within the Middle East, which is the center, which has been the center of struggles, especially against the Jews and against the gods of the Jew. At the time River Euphrates dries up, then the way of these kings will be made to flow over to Megiddo to fight against Jerusalem. But not only these armies alone, all the armies of the world will be manipulated, will be motivated by demons and by various other demonic means to be able to join with Antichrist to fight this battle against Jerusalem and against the God of the Jew. And then it is after then that Christ comes to fight for his people. And then it will lead to the end of battle and the establishment of peace in the earth. Now, this is, just like I said, this has already started to play out. River Euphrates is already drying, and it signals a sign, and everybody is afraid of what will come next. But for those who know Jesus Christ, he said, for us who knows Christ, the Son of Righteousness will shine with healing in his wings. And in fact, at that time, we will be coming from heaven with Jesus Christ, because we will have been raptured with him at the beginning of the tribulation. And now we are coming to execute judgment upon the earth of all their ungodliness. And the few people, in fact, the Bible says at the time the reigning will happen, only few people will remain at the end of the great tribulation and at the end of the battle of Armageddon. Because the battle of Armageddon himself is going to consume so many soldiers in the world, so that more people will die and only few. In fact, the Bible says after all these battles and after all these ruin, destructions in the world, the ratio of men to women will be 1 man to 7 women, and is as bad as that, because all the men in the world at that time will have been volunteered to go to war, and many of them will have died. Only few people with children and women will remain. My prayer for you and for myself is that when that time will come, we will not be here. But that is why, with all these things that are happening, there is only a solution to anyone who wants to escape all these things. Soak yourself in Jesus. Jesus died. He has shed his blood for everyone so that we can be free, we can be saved from all our sin. And there is no other sacrifice. Jesus is not a religion. Jesus died for everyone. Jesus died for the Muslims, the Hindu, the Jews, and every religion in the world. Jesus encompasses. Jesus brings them together. That is not to say that whatever religion you are, whoever you are serving, Jesus is there. What I only mean is that Jesus is a personal. In fact, Jesus is not a Christian. Jesus is Jesus, the Savior of the entire world. Anyone who runs to his arm, he said, I stand at the door of your heart and I knock. If anyone hear my voice and open, I will come into him and sup with him. And then he said, he that believe on me, out of his belly shall flow out rivers of living water. And that water will keep springing up until life eternal. That is what it takes to escape all this danger that is coming to the world. If you are a believer, you have nothing to worry about, because very soon the trumpet will sound and together we'll be with him in heaven. I'm happy. I can't wait to see that day. And I can't wait to hear the trumpet sounds. And my prayer is that you and I will be ready. Please. I release on this channel once in a week messages on end time, where we discuss end time news, scriptures, events in the world that talks about, trending events in the world that points to the coming of the Lord, signs that is difficult to understand in scriptures in the book of Revelations. Those are the things we discuss on this channel. And therefore, I want you to subscribe and then help us to share.